How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I can't complain. Weather's nice down here, so reading. First got into politics, and you was like the commissioner in '77. Is that right?
That's right. I ran for my first office in, let me get this thing straight. Yeah, I ran for my first office in 1977 up in DeKalb County as a county commissioner. I was
What
a pretty
made you?
young man.
I was fixing to say you was 24, 25.
Yeah, in that neighborhood. I was 24 years old. I just got out of the military in 1975. You know,
What
I always had that leadership spirit. You know, I ran for my president of my class when I was in the seventh grade. You know, I've always had that leadership spirit, wanting to make a difference, wanting to have being part of change, and I got in the race and worked hard, and fortunately, I got elected that year.
What branch of the military was you in?
I was in the United States Coast Guard 4 years, 1975, 1971, 1975.
What did you like most about the being on the commission?
Oh wow, I enjoyed being on the commission. A lot of people don't realize what all county commissions do in their counties. I mean, from education to roads to senior citizen programs. I mean, they just don't realize what all goes on. I enjoyed it. Uh, you know, back in those days, I was probably a little antsy. Uh, I ran for president of the county commission the next term, and I was eased out of the runoff by 13 votes. And
Wow.
you know, back then, you know, I was a little antsy, a little more outspoken. I probably should have waited my time, and you know, things might have worked out. But you know, it all works out for the best. I've had a great career. I had a great political career as a statewide office holder. I've had a great career as a county office holder. I really don't have any complaints.
What made you decide to run for the agriculture commission?
Well, you know, I came to Montgomery in 1998 with Charles Bishop. Charles Bishop was the commissioner. He had been a longtime friend of mine.
Like,
And I'd worked with him when he ran for governor in 90, I believe it was. I knew him when he was in the Senate the first time. I got involved in his campaign. I had no idea I was coming to Montgomery. I was director of 911 then. I was president of the state 911 then. And I helped Commissioner Bishop in his campaign. And when he got elected, he just said, look, I need you to come to Montgomery. And boy, that was a big decision. I pretty well pulled up all the stakes I had in Fort Payne and moved to Montgomery. And the rest is history. You know, I mean, he decided to run for governor 4 years later, and I decided to run for ag commissioner, and was fortunate enough to get elected.
What made him decide to challenge Governor Siegelman?
You know, I don't know. You know, Commissioner Bishop always had ambitions to be in the governor's office. That was his second run. You know, I don't know what kind of relationship him and Governor Siegelman had, but you know, Commissioner Bishop was a smart man, and I really enjoyed working with him at the ag department. I mean, I learned a lot from Commissioner Bishop, to be honest with you.
I remember he had a ad that was pretty prophetic. The news anchor talking and said, "How will Governor Siegelman plead?"
Yeah. You know, Bishop, he could play hardball with the best of them. You know, he was at old Oral Bottoms, Arkansas. He claimed that him and Bear Bryant came from the same spot.
Yeah, that's right. Coach Bryant was from there, and then you know, living up there in Walker County, and self-made man, and who was that Lowell Barron he hit in the Senate that time?
That was Lowell in the Senate. I think they just kept on rubbing the commissioner wrong, and he's not a guy that you can rub wrong. I know him about as well as anybody. He's just not going to, whatever was said evidently ticked him off, and he's just not one of those kind of guys that's going to take too much. Of course, on the other hand, I thought the world of Senator Barron too, being that he come from my home county. I'd campaigned with him. I know him. I'd worked with him in a lot of different ways. Thought a lot of Commissioner Barron. It's unfortunate that that incident happened, but I think over a few days, I think they got over it and became buddies again. I think everything worked out.
Yeah, what made Charles Bishop? Because if I remember right, he was a state senator and then jumped into a state representative race. Why to challenge somebody and got beat? I didn't understand giving up the Senate seat for the state rep
No,
seat.
he I don't know about that one. I know he was a Senate back in the early '80s, and I maybe served a couple of terms. He went in as a freshman senator, chairman of the rules.
Oh, really?
That's not hardly ever been done before. But from that point, I think in '90 he ran for governor, and then I
Yes,
think he was out of it back till '98, and we were able to win the ag seat, and I was fortunate enough to come to Montgomery with him.
now a lot of people probably don't realize what all is involved in that agriculture uh, position, because I was reading up on that. I mean, there's a lot of responsibilities that's in that job.
Oh goodness, it's probably to me one of the most important constitutional offices in the state, from food safety to weights and measures, whether it be gasoline or whatever it may be. A lot of people think that when you pump your gasoline, that if it's not giving you a gallon, which that's a problem too. But the biggest problem is octane. Sometimes they would put the wrong octane in the wrong tank. You would not be getting what you were paying for. So
Really?
weights and measures was a big deal. Food safety was a big deal. Inspection, pesticide, animal health. I mean, there were just so many things that I've always said the commissioner of agriculture was to animals and agriculture like the governor was to the people of Alabama. There are so many responsibilities. I don't know that I've ever had the opportunity to do anything that I enjoyed more than being ag commissioner. It's unfortunate it was term limited. That's that when you run, and after 2 terms, you got to pretty well pick up your stakes and move on.
That 2010 governor's race, did the party ask you to get in it, or did you consider any other race?
No. What really happened there? I was planning on running for lieutenant governor the whole time. I really thought Governor Folsom was going to run for governor. He had been governor before, and we had talked about it, and that was sort of the plan. And sort of at the last minute, Governor Folsom made a decision he'd rather stay in the lieutenant governor's race. He was already lieutenant governor, so I guess he thought that would be the best route. It sort of caught me off guard, so I said, "Hey, not going to get out of the races." So I ran for governor, and feel like we ran a pretty hell of a good race. We won the nomination where a lot of people didn't think we would. And we ran a real good race in the general election. I think if you go back and count the votes, if we could have flipped 150,000 votes off of Governor Bentley, we might have been governor. And so it was, it was a very competitive race. I enjoyed doing it, and felt like I had the right issues. To be honest with you, they're still talking about the issues today that I ran on, and so maybe one day we'll get those cleared up.
You're talking about Governor Folsom. I was friends with one of his nephews, and he told me this was back in 2006. We was getting ready to run. Of course, I thought it was going to be Wallace versus Folsom. Excited about that. And he was telling me this. Said, "No, we think this guy from Mountain Brook may beat Wallace." But he told me the reason that Folsom had never made another run was he became an investment banker, and he was just making too much money. And lieutenant governor's been a part-time job. He just didn't want to do it again.
Well, I can't say that couldn't have been a factor. I don't know what kind of money he was making at the time, but I'm sure there's a lot of factors that go into running statewide races. Anybody that's never run one needs to try it one time. I can tell you it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I know what I put into it in 2 years. And I wouldn't take nothing for it, but there's nothing easy about it. So anybody that's ever run may look at a lot more options than people that never has run. It might be an easier decision.
Yeah.
I had already run a statewide race. No, I had not run like a governor's race or lieutenant governor, but I ran ag commissioner. And you've got to run as many counties for ag commissioner as you do governor. So it is what it is.
I was I followed this stuff really close, and I've been pretty good, having knacks for picking candidates. I told somebody that race, I said, he's gonna beat Davis bad. And my friends kept saying, no, he's not, no, he's not. I said, yes, he is. And I said, the vote against the Affordable Care Act, I said, that didn't hurt Davis that bad. I said, but he just shunned his back on half the voters in the Democratic primary. I said, and Ron Sparks said, I'll be there with my Sunday go to meeting clothes on. And I said, when he got those
Well,
endorsements, he
well,
won.
first of all, I believed it the whole time. I'll be honest with you. I never wavered about thinking that I could win the nomination. Now, did I run against a smart candidate and a good candidate? Absolutely. He was sitting congressman at the time, and I had worked with him as ag commissioner. Thought a lot of him, but he was a smart candidate. He got out and started running polls and showing people that whether they were true or not, he was showing people that he was leading by 20 or 30 points. And man, that makes it tough to raise money. I mean, that's what it's all about, is trying to raise enough money to stay in the game. And but Artur was a good candidate. He made me a better candidate. But he did make, in my opinion, some mistakes. One was voting against the Affordable Care Act. I mean, he had the poorest district in the United States that needed health care. Why would you do that? I mean, he had to live with it. I didn't. I have always been friends with the Black community, the African American community. I've always been friends. I've always carried a good vote. As any Democrat candidate, you work hard for those endorsements and those organizations. I did, and I got them, and I think that's what helped me win as big as I did. I mean, it was
Yeah,
not a close race.
it was not at all, because when the first returns came in, my friend I was talking about with it was actually sitting at the bar. I said, I told you that race was not going to be close. He said, just wait. He said, those are the urban votes coming in. I said, well, if those are the urban votes, I said, it's going to be a lot worse than that. I said, because you don't understand, those endorsements he's got are going to be huge. It turned
Yeah,
out I won 11 out of 12 counties that he represented, and even won his home precinct in
yeah,
that.
I beat him pretty bad in his own congressional district.
Yeah.
So, so that ought to tell you something, that there was something he did that had a pretty big disconnect with his own constituents, and when you do that, it's pretty well over.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it was never that whole night. It was never in doubt, that race. Um, when you got in, I mean, going into the fall campaign, did you feel like you could win?
Oh, absolutely. I just won my agricultural race. Before that, I'd won 62 out of 67 counties. I had pulled a lot of Republican vote, and I felt like that we had some momentum, and I felt like we could win. And I think if you go back and look, there's not, and I'm not throwing any, there's not been a Democrat get the percentage of votes that I've been able to get since, except for Senator Jones in the Roy Moore race. He did win that race, but that's sort of an unusual race, and I was proud he won. I ended up working with Senator Jones. I think he was a phenomenal senator, to be honest with you. But
Yes.
but but I did. I thought I was on the right track. I thought I debated well. All of the polls after debates showed me doing really, really well. I think there was just changing of the guard. In 2010, I mean, there was a lot of people that had been there a long time that got defeated. I think there was just a movement and a wave that I couldn't deal with, and other candidates couldn't deal with, and it sort of swept us out of the way.
Do you think any of that that was backlash over us having President Obama? Because I just know so many people.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. In the South, absolutely, no doubt about it. Even though, let me say this, I personally think President Barack Obama was a great president. What a lot of people don't realize is that every year that I was in office with President Barack Obama, the state of Alabama would have not balanced its budgets if it had not been for the stimulus money that President Obama gave Alabama. We would have been in proration. Our state would have had, I mean, we would have not been able to do the things that we were able to do. Now, will they come out and admit it? No, but go back, if they really want to go check it out, I think you'll find out that what the president did for the state of Alabama was pretty big.
Yeah, I remember reading the money that that Alabama was getting during that.
But unfortunately, it's come down to not what you do, what your position is. It's basically what hot button issues can you hit? What can you talk about that really don't matter? What can you talk about we've talked about for the last 30 years that hadn't changed? It's those hot button issues that continue to stimulate a lot of these people that evidently don't understand government and how important their vote is.
Yeah, I mean, I can sit there and think of them right now. It's going to be abortion, gay marriage. Now, I think guns.
Now, critical race theory. I mean,
yeah, that
why, somebody needs to tell me why critical race theory is even an issue. It's never, ever, ever been taught in a public school, except for college students that are in law school, I believe it is. But it has never been taught to my grandchildren, or anybody else's grandchildren, or my children, and they have just made a big issue out of it. So, they're pretty good at that. I think that's been the Democrats' problem now for years, is that we haven't been able to identify ourselves as well as they identify us and make it stick. And most of the things they identify us with are just totally not true.
Well, there's so many things too. Like, if I'm not mistaken, the last year, the only bill they signed was banning transgender athletes from playing in Alabama high schools. And I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue.
But most people don't read a bill. Most people don't know what bills go through the legislature. Most people don't even think about us losing 515 babies a year to infant mortality. That's not an issue. They don't think about 13 hospitals closing in Alabama and healthcare is becoming a serious issue. That's not an issue. They don't think about all the money we've lost because we hadn't expanded Medicaid in Alabama and what it's doing to our healthcare system and the people that need healthcare and the hospitals that are closing. They don't think about the money we have lost, about $7 billion since I ran for governor, just in gambling money, just in gambling taxes. $7 billion. Can you just think about what $7 billion would do for some of these dilapidated schools, or some of these dilapidated school buses, or for a senior citizen center? I mean, we're still sitting fighting over things that we've been fighting over for years. And I don't really see any promise, to be honest with you.
That was going to be my next question. Republicans control the governorship, lieutenant governorship, both houses of the legislature, of course. How come they can't get a bill passed? I mean,
they pass a lot of bills that sometimes really doesn't matter. Like I said, they do pass some hot button bills. I haven't read every bill they've ever passed. I'm sure there's some that they've run through, but the short memory on people. The first order of business when this new legislature came in, they voted for a gas tax, which I wasn't necessarily opposed to. But I have a problem voting for any tax in the state of Alabama as long as we don't tax and control gambling. I really have a problem putting another penny on anybody until we get that issue resolved.
Per capita gambling stayed out there. I mean, I can't tell you how many bookies I know that take football bets, and the tax thing. I want to touch on.
Well, Alabama. Let's be honest. Alabama's probably one of the lead states in the country on sports betting.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you 3 bookies I can call.
I don't care whether you're for it or against it. Doesn't matter to me. It's here. And the
And
sad thing about it, we got things that we could be doing with the tax money. Uh, I mean, you don't have to expand it across the state. I mean, you've got these pop-up cinder block casinos around the state. I mean, people don't really know what's going on, and if that's what they want, that's fine with me. I mean, I laid my issue on the table. I wanted to make sure that every kid in Alabama had a scholarship. The price of a college education just out of reach for an average kid anymore. And even
Yep.
for the kid that's not an average kid, the debt that he has when he comes out of school is pretty phenomenal. So I would start encouraging kids when they start graduating, they better start looking at a good job, maybe like welding or maybe like auto mechanics or air conditioning. I can assure you that some of those folks are making a heck of a lot more money than some of the folks that go to college for 4 years.
Yeah, you nailed something there. I was in a discussion on that with guys not wanting to wipe out student debt, and he made a comment about somebody with that went to a 2-year school and was really taking a dive at him. I said, look, I said, I put a whole lot more in this guy that went 2 years to welding school than this guy with a PhD in philosophy that's sitting down there at Starbucks complaining because he ain't got a job. Don't think.
Well, you got to think about how many children in the state of Alabama now with a college degree that don't have a job. And that's unfortunate. I wish they all had jobs. I'll be honest with you. But it is what it is. And what I want to do is give everybody an opportunity and try to lessen their debt and give them an opportunity to do what they want to do. And that just wasn't part of the game plan.
I mean, you mentioned gambling. I mean, since Governor Sigelman first ran on that in 1990, I can't even imagine how much money that's went to the other states. Another one I think about is how much money tax revenue they bring in by legalizing marijuana.
Well, that's really a hot one. We just now got medical marijuana bill passed, and that's the one thing that I do commend the legislature about. I think there's an awful lot of people in Alabama that need it. I'm hoping that somewhere down the road that you see people that have been addicted to opioids, maybe we can get them off of it. A child that's having seizures, people that's having chronic pain. So I think that is a good piece of legislation, but I really believe it's going to become a hot button issue in this governor's race. And
I mean, draconian law that for simple possession of marijuana in the state, and then the second charge of the third charge. I'm like, you're trying to stay in prison for 10 years.
Well, that's our problem. We filled our prison up with marijuana guys. That's our problem. And what people don't understand, we spend $4,000 a year to educate a child. We spend $14,000 a year to keep a man in prison. So think about it. Think about it. We spend $10,000 more a year as a taxpayer to keep a man in prison than we do to educate our own children. So we build prisons based on third grade reading scores. So it don't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. What should we do? We should make sure that every child in Alabama that comes out of the third grade is reading at third grade level. And if they're reading at third grade level, their percentages of graduation goes up tremendously. If they're not reading at third grade level, the percentages go down.
Really?
So why do people look at building prisons on third grade reading scores? Because because our prisons are full of people who drop out of high school. I mean, 85% of our people in prison are high school dropouts? And I'm not saying all high school, I'm not, and I don't want anybody to get me wrong here. There's people that do drop out of high school that don't get in trouble. But look at the people that are in our prisons that do. So our goal should be graduate everybody we can and get these folks out of prison that's got some of these marijuana charges on them, get them in some kind of drug rehabilitation program. Here they're going to spend $400 million of COVID money to build prisons.
Well, the first round of COVID money, they've still got hundreds of billions of dollars missing from that. that they've not accounted for. There's
Well, I would say that they should probably try to get some of these hospitals in one, even if we can't get the hospital back going, they ought to get some kind of emergency service going. They ought to look at ECMO machines. Most people don't know what an ECMO machine is, but they ship people out of state to get on an ECMO machine. That's really the last resort with COVID. It pretty well takes over your body, your heart and your lungs, and gives you an opportunity to rest because you're laboring so hard because you can't breathe. Then we ship them to Georgia, we ship them to Tennessee, and they put them on. I can show you 2 or 3 people that you could have pretty well chalked up to be dead. That's not because they were put on an ECMO machine. I don't know exactly what an ECMO machine costs, but I can assure you part of that 400 million would have been pretty good to have made sure that some of these hospitals had one.
And I'm looking at this right here too. They have $800 million that they have to spend by the 30th, where it goes back to the federal government. And you talked about hospitals a while ago. They've got all these rural hospitals that's fixing to close. UAB got $35 million of that money, and that's fine. But I mean, UAB's making money. They gave stipends to teachers who took the year off and still got paid. I mean, that's probably with any kind of taxes. They're wasting so much money down there.
Well, let me tell you what happened. This is what they ought to be considering. You got all these hospitals across Alabama that got an advance in Medicare during COVID. Okay, so there was going to be a payback program. So what happened is they had to start paying it back, not realizing they were going to have another round of COVID. So they were paying it back when their hospitals were full of COVID patients. So why aren't we out here trying to help these hospitals survive? Why don't we listen to what the real problems really are? Because these rural hospitals struggle. And I know people say, well, I wouldn't go to that hospital. Well, you know what? Somebody that don't have a hospital in their county, or somebody that did have a hospital that don't anymore, would gladly take your hospital. I can assure you. And what they don't understand, that every rural hospital that we have closed down puts that much more pressure on UAB. UAB can't take everybody. And
Right.
and what that does, it just puts pressure on our bigger hospitals. And we're just not thinking outside the box. I think it's absolutely morally every word you can think of wrong that we sit here and think it's okay that we continue to lose 515 babies a year to infant mortality. When I was with Governor Bentley, and I know you'll get around to that in a minute. When I was with Governor Bentley, we started what we call a baby box campaign, and I think we really, really made a difference. What that was is most babies that die before they're a year old die from a sleep-related incidents. So we wanted to try to find a way. They were sleeping with their parents, okay, because they didn't have a bed to sleep in. So what we wanted to do is try to educate these mothers and educate people across Alabama, give them a tool to where that baby can sleep, and education materials, and see if we couldn't save some of these babies' lives. I think we made a difference. I don't know what happened to that program, to be honest with you. It may still be going, but if it is, I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, let's talk about Governor Bentley for a minute. I met him one time. It was right before he had before his wife got divorced. Yeah, it seemed like he survived, weathered the storm, and then went back to the inauguration. What was it that he actually pled guilty to and resigned for?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I probably became as close to Governor Bentley as anybody. I ended up working with him and worked with him for a reason, because I wanted to give the people that I felt like didn't have a voice. And I enjoyed working in the Black Belt. I enjoyed working on healthcare issues, and Governor Bentley allowed me to do that. I think Governor Bentley, to ever let the people of Alabama know, he's got to tell his own story. He bottom line was, he could, most people don't realize you can indict a ham sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and he couldn't afford to take a chance on losing his medical license.
Right.
I mean that. Of course, he's in his late 70s now, and he's still practicing and has a very good practice. I still communicate with Governor Bentley. But
Yeah.
one day somehow, and this is what I tell Governor Bentley all the time, the best way for people to really understand is to tell your story and be truthful and let people know really what took place and what went on. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's and I
I
think
don't.
that's what needs to happen.
I don't because I don't think the people that I've talked to, they don't really harbor ill will towards Governor Bentley. I mean, he
Well,
seems to be.
you got to remember, even after he resigned, they came back after the investigation, said they couldn't find nothing. I mean, I don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, I don't care what you are. These political prosecutions, man, they can happen to anybody. If you think you're immune to a political prosecution, you're crazy. Just let
And I
somebody get after you, let somebody get on you. Uh, I mean, and in some cases they're warranted. I'm not going to start picking choosing, but if you're wrong, you're wrong. You're right, you're right. But just the sake of because somebody's not functioning the way you feel like they need to be functioning, take out after them and drum up crazy stuff. I don't agree with that.
let's I mean, be honest. You don't think that I mean, really, they could do a political prosecution on anybody they wanted if they locked after them. And I had a Republican Attorney General that I talked to tell me, I asked him off the record. I said, "Did Governor Sigelman get railroaded?" He said, "Oh yeah," and I said, "Yeah, that's what I thought." I mean, he said, they get it in for you. I mean, they can get any kind of charge. Somebody you broke the law. Everybody's broke the law somewhere on one of the charges.
Well,
Yes.
I've been through some of that stuff. I'll be honest with you, and it's unfortunate. Basically, all they want to do is they try to break you. I mean, that's basically what it is. They try to break you. In some cases, they're successful, and some cases they're not. And I think it's very unfortunate. I don't think it's good for politics in the state of Alabama. Yes, I'll be the first one to say I think Governor Siegelman was done wrong in a lot of ways. Even after he got convicted and went to prison, I think he was mistreated in a lot of ways. Uh, I think Governor Bentley would tell you that if he could do over, he'd make some decisions differently, uh, than what he made. I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds about. I pretty well know, but I'm not going to get in the weeds about Governor Bentley. But anybody that really cares and is concerned, if they'd read about it, it would make them concerned about uh, how easy it is to take somebody out. I mean,
I mean,
basically he took personal money, put it in his campaign account, and paid legal fees when he could, and he got approval from two different uh, places, whether it be legal opinions or whatever it may be. So I mean, he could have took the money and went directly and been wouldn't have been no problem. But he put it in his campaign account.
we can go back. I mean, even to when
Big deal.
they went after Governor Hunt. Yeah, I mean, that's some stuff there, but I mean, I think
He
firmly they
made it.
went after.
He made a mistake, and should it have been the death penalty? I doubt it. But
Yeah,
you know, I mean, that's my whole point. If the shoe fits in some cases, wear it. But in a lot of cases, it don't. It's politically motivated, and I don't think that's good for our government. I don't think it's good for kids that's wanting to understand government. I think we are at the worst stage in government that we've ever been in my life. I was in government for 50 years, 45, 50 years. And I never, I never disliked an opponent. Never disliked them. Matter of fact, I became friends with most of my opponents.
I
And I don't understand this. I don't understand this hate mentality. I don't understand the disrespect mentality. I don't understand that the only thing you're willing to stand on a soapbox and scream is what's going to get you reelected. I mean, you got politicians that will say anything that will get you reelected. And used to the things you would say, you'd have to be accountable. That's not the case anymore. People say anything, and just you got to figure it out whether it's truth or not. That's not good for government. That's not good for democracy. That's not good for us. And it is what it is.
Yeah, there's another one I want to touch on. I had an attorney told me off the record, and this was a very high profile attorney here in Birmingham, that he offered to represent Larry Langford for free. They had wanted Langford to testify about something, and Langford told the feds no. And he said, and they came and they brought the charges against Langford, and then they came and offered him 3 years, and Langford said no, and then the last one was for him to resign, and he said no, and for some reason he decided to take the trial to Tuscaloosa to Birmingham, and but I think that
Well, my opinion there, if anybody wants to take on prosecutors with an unlimited bank account, have at it. Most of the time, you ain't going to win. They got all the money in the world they want to spend to prosecute you, and you got to pay money sometimes that you don't have to defend yourself. So, have at it. It's unfortunate that those things happen. There again, I go back to what I said earlier. In some cases, if the shoe fits, wear it. They are people that are corrupt. They are people that I always had a saying that if you thought you were going to read it in the Birmingham paper the next day, don't do it. And I pretty well stuck by that. But you just got people that don't have a servant's heart anymore. They don't have the will to really want to help people. They really enjoy hitting these hot button issues, and I think they're destroying us.
I laughed so hard at the federal prosecutors when Milton McGregor came out with his hands up in there. So did they really think they was going to get a conviction against him down there when he put the whole area to work? Well, that's the most impoverished place, maybe the United States, and he gave the people
over 2,000 employees.
Yeah,
well, and they sure tried. Even in my gubernatorial campaign, they tapped my phones.
Really?
Yes, sir. Because they have to send you a letter. They send you a letter and tell you. You don't think I was talking to Milton during my campaign? You don't think I talked about gambling? Do you think for 1 minute? If I had said the wrong thing, that my name would have been in that list? They were sitting there hoping that I did say the wrong thing. They don't care whether it's me or whoever it is. If it's a high-profile politician that's running for governor that has a slip of the tongue, and then they twist it and change it the way they want it. Yeah, I mean, there it is. But yeah, during that period of time, they also dropped the indictments over a few days before the election, knowing that I was the gambling kind of effect it had on me. But everything's always a blessing. Some people probably like what I'm fixing to say, and some won't. And it don't really matter. I get when you get to be 69, 70, you say what you want to. It all works out. It all worked out for the best. I really enjoyed the 6 years that I was able to go back and work with the state. I feel like we did. I'll give you a good example. We really brought telemedicine to the state. When a lot of people were against telemedicine, they found out through the pandemic how important it was. And now telemedicine's here to stay. But I can honestly say that you can give Governor Bentley the credit for allowing me to continue to push to bring telemedicine to the state. Now, it's here in a lot of different forms. A lot of people call telemedicine telephone. You get on the telephone. I like the video conferencing. I like all the technology. I like where they can check your heart from one side of the country to the other. I like the technology that's out there, because you got people that can't go to a doctor. They can't go to the grocery store, much less a doctor. And I think telemedicine has been extremely important to the state. And I give Governor Bentley all the credit for allowing me to go do it.
When
if nobody else is going to toot your horn, hell, we might as well toot our own.
When you had the opportunity to head the party, why didn't you take it?
Well, I'd really run my course. I mean, there comes a point in time that the fire in your belly just sort of burns out. And I didn't want to fight the fights that I knew that you were going to have to fight. And I just got to that point. Do I continue want to do everything I can to help my party and to control the narrative of what I think is good for the state of Alabama? Absolutely. Do I think our party is where it needs to be today? No, sir. I'll be real honest with you. I'm extremely disappointed, and I really hadn't had anybody to explain it to me yet, and what kind of effect they think it's going to have on the state. But I don't see it having a good effect for the party if we don't fill some legitimate constitutional office races. And I don't see it happening. And it's really discouraging to see that happen. I guess they've got the attitude that, kill them old dinosaurs that's ran for public office like me and Siegelman and Folsom and Jan Cook and Sue Bell Cobb and Susan Parker and, all the folks that's run in the past. And I know I've left somebody out, but, we've had some phenomenal candidates, and we still got, in my opinion, we still got a chance to have some phenomenal candidates. I think we've got the right message. I just don't think we have a messenger.
I mean, yeah, that's phenomenal. One of my first races.
I don't mean to choke you up, but I mean that's just where I'm at. I think there's some messages out there that people really need to hear, and they're going to continue to hit on the ones we talked about at the beginning. They're going to talk about those things. Evidently, they've worked, and they're going to continue down that path. But I think there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more important messages out there that we really could do something about immediately, than to continue to beat the drum on things that you're not going to be able to do anything about. I just saw a thing a minute ago where somebody introduced a piece of legislation, the abortion bill, word for word, just like it is in Texas. Folks, let me tell you what that's going to do. It's going to cost the state of Alabama money, and it's going to cost the state of Alabama in a lot of other ways. So if that's the route they want to go and they want to spend all their time in court, have at it.
So the first race that I can remember that I followed, the first memory I ever had, I remember my dad holding it. He let me turn the lever and the Wallace McMillan run off to vote for George Wallace. The first one I ever kept up with was 86 with Baxley and Braddock. If the party keeps Braddock as the nominee, how long does the Democratic Party last in Alabama? Because
we probably would have lasted a little longer. I'm sure that the national issues would begin to affect us a little bit, probably, because we were still voting Republican nationally. But I think we would have probably held on a little bit longer. I really do. And, I think if you go back and look at what happened then, I think Governor Hunt would tell you it's probably the best campaign move he ever did.
Do you think the party made the right decision by removing Braddock as the nominee?
Well, not knowing is probably much about it. And no, I believe that if you get voted in, you get voted in. I think when you start dilly dabbling with the people's voice and their vote, I think you're really walking on slippery ice.
I love Bill Baxley. I still talk to him all the time. But I remember as a kid when they took that away from Braddock, I know what the law said and all that, but I just thought that this isn't fair. The guy won the race, and my grandfather.
Well, I think the world of Bill Baxley too, and had the pleasure of serving and working with Lucy, and they're phenomenal people and great candidates, and served the state well. And everybody's going to have their own opinion, and I wish, unless there was just something totally illegal that I don't know about, I wasn't in the leadership to know. But from the outside looking in, I think they might have made a mistake.
I mean, my friend told me that Al Lapierre told him, said, we're making a huge mistake here because these Braddock voters. My grandfather, man, was born in 1930. I mean, first Republican he ever voted for was, of course, Reagan in '84, but he was absolutely furious. I mean, he didn't know who Guy Hunt was.
Anytime the public thinks you're taking their voice away, there's consequences, and I think we saw the consequences.
He
And then
said,
you went on, and you had a guy, you had Governor Hunt that ended up defeating, in my opinion, probably one of the smartest, most astute individuals I ever known. That was Hubbard.
yeah, Dr. Hubbard, to me, just looking outside looking in, he had more power over the AEA than he would ever
Well,
had.
he built that. He built that, and I give him a lot of credit. And he was smart enough to partner with Joe Reed, and they built a strong base and was able to build the political wheel. And I got to give them a lot of credit. They did a lot of good things for school teachers.
Prosecution.
It's like I've always said, the Democrats give school teachers the drop. Republicans took it away. Vote Republican today.
This race too. I mean, I called it early. How bad do you think that the prosecution of Hunt hurt Republicans in '94 when Bob James upset Folsom?
I think it did hurt. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
I mean, that's twice you're talking about 2 elections there that like you said, the people take their voices being they don't like that. I was explaining to somebody about when Roy Moore beat Luther Strange so bad in that runoff. I think he carried 64 out of 67 counties. I said people felt like they were telling who the next senator was going to be.
Well, they just felt like that something was wrong or something was going on, and when that gets in people's mindset, it's hard to change that. You ain't got enough money to run enough commercials to change that. I can promise you.
Governor Ivey.
Okay.
She came into politics, I think, working for the government in the late '90s and got elected state treasurer.
She came into politics working for Bob James when he first got elected as a Democrat.
Back in the '70s. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. I was reading some biographical information on her in the '90s, but I didn't know. Was she working with in education for him?
To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure where she was, exactly what she was doing, but I think history would show that Bob was a big factor of her being in any kind of government back in the '70s. I stand to be corrected, but I feel like that's basically right.
So she beat Twinkle in 2000, state treasurer, and then made a pretty smart decision by pulling out of that governor's race in 2010 and upset Governor Folsom. And
well, you also got to remember she got beat running for treasurer before she ever won. And then she ran and she got elected.
So she had ran. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And then she got in the governor's race, and I'd have to give her credit. I think it was probably a smart political move. The governor's race was pretty crowded, and I don't know what her poll numbers really probably looked like at that particular point in time. I don't know, but
yeah,
I guess they probably had a feel of a sweep, and they just needed somebody in that situation.
I mean, that race I thought really that it was going to be Roy Moore was going to be the nominee going in that year. You look at the 4 of them, from Moore, James, Bentley, and there was that many votes separating.
To be honest with you, I always thought it burned. He had laid such a foundation statewide, and if it had not been for Hubbard it might have been Bradley Byrne. Tim James, I think, got knocked out of the runoff. I think less than 100 votes.
It was, it was about 100 votes.
And then, but that's another thing too. You know, history. If you go back and look at history, all Democrat nominees for governor have been supported by AEA.
Hmm?
Okay, in history, as long as I can remember, all Democrat nominees running for governor had AEA's 100% support. Well, Hubbard was so wrapped up in that governor's race of beating Bradley Byrne that was not the case with me. And when Bradley Byrne got in the runoff with Governor Bentley, Hubbard went with Governor Bentley.
And that
well,
they,
and Governor Bentley won the nomination. Well, how in the hell do you go back now if you're Hubbard and say, "Well, I was just telling you this is what I want you to do now. I want you to go over here and vote for Sparks." It don't work that way. And I mean, politically, it just don't work that way. So I'm probably the only Democrat nominee in modern since AEA that did not have AEA's 110% support. That was an education candidate. And I think you saw what happened to AEA from that point on.
Now, you mentioned Tim James. I remember he was polling, pretty low. Then he comes out with this English only ad, driver's license. I think he ran that ad about 2 weeks too early, because if he would have held on to that, I think he would have been in the runoff, because his poll numbers immediately skyrocketed, and then he's leveled off again.
You know, personally, I like Tim. I really do. As a person or a guy that's going deer hunting or duck hunting, I like Tim James. But God knows he gets some of these harebrained ideas and these off the wall issues. You know, if he would stay focused on real issues that really matter, in my opinion, it's his campaign. Hell, he can talk about anything he wants to. But now he's talking about yoga.
I've seen that.
And now he's talking about medical marijuana.
Mhm.
I'm sure critical race theory will fall up in there somewhere. I'm sure stealing campaigns will fall up in there somewhere. Tell me what anybody's done in the state in the last few months that's going to change the election. Tell me one campaign that's been stolen. Tell me I think John Merle will tell you we probably run some of the fairest, most honest elections in the country, but yet they want to run campaign ads about them. So there again, it's all about hot button issues. What can I do to gin up my base, fire them up? I mean, hell, you can't go buy a hunt shell anymore.
I know. I was in Walmart the other day and
you can't. You take me that I'm an avid hunter and an outdoorsman. I can't even go buy a 30-06 shell. I can't go buy any shells to go in my hunting rifles, because you got these folks that just packing them back, thinking they may have to defend their county one of these days.
Exactly.
And that's terrible that we continue to, incite and gin up people with facts and things that are not true and not important. And but that's the political way. That's just the way it is today.
You mentioned Tim, like I love Fob, and I asked George McMillan one time. I said, "What was it like when he was governor and you was lieutenant governor?" He said, "Like a bull in a china shop."
Well, I served with Fob. I was elected the first time when Fob was elected the first time. I was a young county commissioner, and to be honest with you, I like Fob. I always have. He was. I mean, Fob, you never knew which way he was coming from, and some of his cabinet members he brought in same way. I mean, if anybody ever knew Mr. Rayner, who was head of the highway department, hell, he was tough. And I guess that was their plan, but and you had to really work hard to get anything out of them. But I knew Fob, Governor James, extremely well. I know the James family. Hell, I wish him all the luck in the world. But I just personally, if I had a conversation with him, I'd say, man, there's a lot of issues out there that really matter. There's a lot of people hurting that really matter. There's a lot of people that need health care in this state. There's a lot of counties that their hospitals about to go under. There's a lot of areas that don't have doctors in the Black Belt.
Remember
We
Governor
got
Jay-
we're educating more doctors in the state of Alabama today than we've ever in the history of this state.
Really?
How many of them are? How many? Oh yeah, and how many are we keeping? I mean, you got the new school in Dothan. You got the new school. You got the school in South Alabama. You've got osteopathic school at Auburn now. I mean, we're educating more doctors in Alabama than we ever have. But we can't get one in the Black Belt. And so, I mean, there's a lot of issues out there, and you know, and they change, and so everybody's got to stand on their own platform and their own campaign. I know what I stood on when I ran, and I was proud of it. And so, I guess if yoga's what's important, they'll go after it.
One thing in this state, and it's went back, and we were the third or fourth state to secede, but back with the Governor Wallace, and when then Fobb said if they take down the 10 Commandments, they'll be staring down the barrel of M16s, and then Governor Bentley said something one time about if you start talking about defying the federal government or on any issue, you're going to fire up this whole state. I don't understand where the sense of defiance is.
Well, my thing is that if the federal government took the money back that they're giving the state of Alabama, people start having a different attitude. For every dollar we send to Washington, we get $3 or $4 back. We're probably one of the most enriched government program states they are in the country. Well, I think we are like number 3 of receiving federal money in the state of Alabama. So, if the federal government's what you hate, hell, hate them. But at least do a little bit of research and realize what they're doing for education or what they're doing for health care or what they're doing for whatever program it may be. Winston Churchill one time said, have a 10-minute conversation with an average voter and a democracy would scare you to death. And that's really true, because most people won't take the time to sit down and look at what's really important. Who ever thought in our wildest dreams that we would see people knocking out the windows in our own capital?
I thought it reminded me of Eastern Europe in '89 when I was watching that, and
I never, to be honest with you, it killed my soul. It just absolutely, and the sad thing about it, there were some good people in that crowd, unfortunately, that got brainwashed and are paying a price now that probably wish they wasn't paying. But that's what happens when you don't do your own research and have a mind of your own. Is that if you let somebody lead you down those roads, sometimes you're the one that pays the price, and they go home eating caviar. So,
leave that police off.
And the other thing is too, I've been around the world. I've been to about every place you can go to, whether it be Cuba, India, Africa, Vietnam, China, Hong Kong, Japan, the Ukraine, Argentina, Mexico, Brazil. I've been around the world. I never flew back to this country that I didn't want to kiss the ground. We have the greatest country in the world. Yeah, that we have problems and we have issues, but there's nothing that this country can't overcome if we sit down and look each other eye to eye and have a little compromise in our, that our mind ain't set, that I'm not willing to work with you on any issue. We got the greatest country in the world, and nobody ever convinced me any differently.
I forgot. I got off target a while ago when I was mentioning Governor Ivy when she hung around, comes the governor, and she actually had a really good ad out that time. She said, steady the ship. I got a copy of one of her itineraries. I think it was about a year or two she was in office. She's putting in 16 hours a week. You think she's fit to be governor?
I don't know. I know what it takes to I know what it takes to work statewide. I've done it myself. I remember the 16, 17, 18-hour days when people were going home. I was getting in a truck headed to Florence or somewhere to give a 30-minute speech, and everybody else is going home, going to bed, and visiting their families. I know what that's like.
He's putting in 16
And
weeks.
I was putting 16 hours a day or more. I did that in my governor's race also. So for 10 years, or 12 years, really, I was at the ag department. I hammered down pretty hard, and it takes a lot out of you. You know, uh, I don't know what her health issue is, but I know one thing: it takes a lot to get done what you need to get done.
I mean, I don't. I think she's to be 75 years old. I mean, not to say anything.
I don't have a clue.
But she just doesn't. Governor Ivey just doesn't look well. Again, I don't know her health. And I don't know. And don't really care about her personal life. But why would Patricia Todd try to do something like she did?
In an angle that might have been effective. That's what's happened to politics today. We throw daggers sometimes that
She had
become
nothing.
Sometimes we throw daggers that become boomerangs, and they come back and hit you. And so, I don't know what her calculation was on that particular statement, but
In Orlando, because she was going to something down there.
I think she had a job somewhere. And
So-
to be honest with you, there again, I know Patricia Todd. I think the world of Patricia Todd. I think she was a good House member. So, and she stands strong on her particular issues. And
Yeah.
I think
I just could not understand what she was trying to gain by that, and that didn't anything but hurt her in the long run. And like I said, I don't care what Governor Ivey's personal life is, and it doesn't matter to me what Patricia Todd's is. I just didn't understand.
Well, there
that.
again, it's like I said, sometimes when you throw that dagger, it becomes a boomerang, and it hits the person that throws it. So, I would recommend to anybody, young politicians in the future, be real wise about who you're throwing those daggers at, because you may be the one that gets hit.
So, coming up on 2022, does anybody have a chance to unseat Kay Ivey?
Well, I don't know. I think they'll make it certainly interesting. I think it's hard to unseat an incumbent, but I think don't take Tim James lightly. He got a lot of votes when he ran the last time. He's damn sure going to work hard, probably. I think the Blanchard lady's got plenty of funding, and I think you may see President Trump get involved, and what kind of effect can he have with the voting public in Alabama? I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. I just wish we had a legitimate Democrat that, when it's all said and done, that would be able to stand there and take one of them on. But at this point, I don't see that happening.
Jim Ziegler's, Jim Ziegler wants to be governor so bad.
Well, I think Jim may get in it. He'll sure stir it up. Ain't no doubt about it.
I mean, I've followed his career for a long time.
If it's on his mind, if it's on his mind, it'll come across his lips.
Yeah,
he's pretty well going to tell you what's on his mind.
I remember his nickname one time was Mr. 49%, because that guy had
right.
So many races. 49%.
As a Democrat.
Yeah, as a Democrat.
As a Democrat.
No, I don't know if it was his first race, but he lost to George Wallace Jr. for state treasurer. I asked different people about this. I thought for sure when I was a kid this guy had it made, and then he run for that Senate seat. Bill Dickinson had been Republican for 28 years. Did that kill his career?
I don't know. I just don't.
because I think at first the name helped him, but then it became a detriment because he just was not the same person and had the same fire and that his father did.
Yeah. Well, there again, I don't know. I mean, you never know. You never know what's going to take you out.
And I mean, I've talked to him many times. I like him. It's just because when you lose, sometimes when you lose a race like that, you get a stigma. Because he came back in '94.
I'm gonna tell you, losing statewide campaigns is painful. Anybody that puts what it takes to run a legitimate statewide campaign, and if you're not successful, it's hurtful. I don't care who it is. I've been around candidates that have lost. I mean, hell, I don't think you could have found a better candidate than Walt Maddox. I think Walt Maddox was a phenomenal candidate. I don't think you could have found a better senator than Senator Jones. I mean, if you look at his record in a short period of time, he was there. And the way, and Senator Jones operated just like Senator Doe that we just buried within the last week. Country come first. And he was willing to reach across that party line if he thought it was good for the people. He passed 23 bills as a Democrat senator in the short period of time that he was there. 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. And he was a phenomenal senator. But, I mean, what did he get? 37% of the vote?
Yeah, we passed one bill for military widows.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I work with him, and I work with his staff, and I ended up being what they call a senior advisor. And some of the things that he did, agriculture for military, I mean, it was pretty phenomenal what he did. But I thought it didn't pay off. I can tell you that.
No,
and I'm gonna tell you. He may not sit here and tell you this, and he may get mad at me for saying it, but it hurt. It hurt him when he lost, as hard as he worked and the hours that he put in and the things that he was able to get accomplished, not being able to go back and put your full term in and your stamp on it, serve it in the. And unfortunately, in my opinion, the state of Alabama lost a good senator.
I could see the sincerity in the ads when he was talking to the people, and I really thought that he had a chance. Some people didn't even know what the '64 Voting Rights Act was. I mean, he didn't even. It reminded me, and I don't mean this bad because I love football more than anybody, but it reminded me of one of these 2A coaches down here who couldn't even spell their name and got elected senator.
Well, he's our senator now, and I mean, in a short period of time, he's going to be senior senator. So, I mean, it is what it is. I want him to be successful because if he's successful, Alabama's successful. Do I disagree with most of his policies? Probably. I just think Senator Jones had a lot of respect among his colleagues, Republican and Democrat. I think he knew how to get things done, and unfortunately, the people of Alabama didn't seem fit to send him back.
Because you had a good point. I mean, when you said reach across the line, he didn't toe the party line. I mean, he voted his conscience as I've seen with the Democrats and vote against them.
The one thing I can honestly tell you is that I can honestly tell you this: that Senator Jones made his votes based on his heart and what he learned. He didn't make his vote based on elections.
When you mentioned losing a race and hurting, I've only got. He's talked a little too about it, but George McMillan's race in '82. About that at all. It thinks that
do you know how many votes he got beat?
22,000. And didn't he called the race for him earlier in the night?
I think he got beat less than 2,000.
It may be. I mean, because it was a very a friend of mine.
I think it turned out to be like 2 votes per box. it was extremely close. And I knew George McMillan, great guy, good 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 mind, good vision. Of course, I knew the Wallaces. I mean, that was a hard fought Democratic primary. It was a doozy.
Well, friends of us said they called the Associated Press had actually called the race for McMillan. He thought he'd won, and like 2 o'clock in the morning, the votes started. Wallace pulled ahead, and I can still tell because George he'll talk some to me about politics, but he will not talk about that race much at all.
Well, I tell you somebody else that Don Sigmund can tell you about a race being called. And then it ended up not being the way it is. But
I mean, thank you for one.
I do. I think Governor Sigmund probably had it, and I don't know exactly what took place, but it is what it is.
So I think about how much it hurt those guys, and then I think about how bad it probably had to hurt Vice President Gore to think you've been elected president.
Hey. Don't you know it? I mean, those things hurt. I know. I've been in races that I've won. I've been in races that I've lost, and I can tell you, I like the winning side better than I do the losing side. But I've been very fortunate. I've been able to create a lot of friends across the state of Alabama. I've been able to create a lot of friends, Republican and Democrat. I'm not one of these that because you have a different party affiliation next to your name that I automatically hate you. That's just not in my DNA. I don't operate that way. I never have. I feel like that when I served in the ag commissioner's seat, that when I walked to the legislature and asked for help, I felt like I had respect among Democrats and Republicans. And the reason that I had respect is because I treated them with respect. And I think that's what we are lacking is respect for each other. Oh. And I think it's hurting us. I think decorum is hurting us, but that's just the message that people think is winning races. It's like Governor Bentley's race when I ran against Governor Bentley. Go find a negative ad I ran against him. You can't. I didn't run a negative ad against Arthur. You can't find one. But most people think negative sales and negative wins, and they're going to keep doing negative. And I think it just hurts our system when those kind of things happen. So, I don't have any regrets. I do the things that I've done the same way politically. I don't have any regrets whatsoever. I've had a great career and enjoy talking about it on occasions.
There's an office in Alabama that looks like to me it would be a dream job if somebody got it, and none of them would even answer a question through a representative, through their representatives from me. The Public Service Commission.
It is a good job. It's a very good job.
Making $100,000 a year to regulate the power and coal, and they're funding their campaigns. I mean,
they're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to be able to take money from those that regulate you, but those that you regulate. But I'm sure it probably happens. But yeah, I'd say the PSC is a pretty good political office.
They're never in the office either. I call every day, and they're never in the office. So. I even with Commissioner Kavanaugh would not have answered one question to a representative, or none of them would. So okay. I mean, that seems like I don't know why you'd want to give that job up right there, working 2 days a month for $110,000 a year.
Well, a lot of people don't very, very quickly. There's a lot of people stay there a long time, but it is a good political position, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of important issues that come up, and but I don't think they're going to sweat too hard. I don't. I know that when I was at ag, it was a hard job, and there was a lot to be done. And not only that, I enjoyed it. I never complained about having to work 6, 7 days a week. I enjoyed it. It was the people's office, and I felt like I represented them and did the best I could do. So it's all good.
Where does this?
I know we've been on here a long time. How long we gonna do this?
I was going to ask you one more question. I was going to let you know go because I kept a lot of your time. I appreciate you coming on. I've asked people all the time, hey, can I talk to you? Some people like you, great to come on, and other people ignore me. And one thing I found is people who's running for office. I've asked them, and some people ignore me, and then I look, and the other day that guy just so ignored me and didn't respond back, and I was looking through the ads, and I seen this lady and offered her. She jumped at the opportunity for free advertisement. So I do appreciate that.
Well, I don't have a problem talking to anybody about any particular issue because I don't really have nothing to hide. When you're in office, sometimes if you've got press secretaries, they're pretty good gatekeepers. They pretty well try to tell you who you can, or who you should be talking to, and that might be some of your problems. I don't know that to be a fact, but sometimes people have pretty good gatekeepers.
People ask me, who I represent. So I don't represent anybody. I'm, just talking to myself. And some of the people see, for free ad and run with it. But the final question I had for you was, how does the state Democrats become a
legitimate
competitive party again? What do they need?
And is it possible? Yeah, I do think it's possible, and I think we need to have a louder voice. I think we need to be answering every issue that's out there. We ought to be doing press conferences every day in every corner of the state. I think it's going to take a lot of work. I really believe there's a lot of good issues out there that we could be talking about, and we're just not doing it. We'll ship out a few emails here and there, or beg for money here and there, and we're not energizing our county base. We're letting a lot of their local elected officials that we used to have Democrat Party, we're not energizing the county. So most of them are switching parties that they don't have to switch. So we got a lot of work to do.
I mean, does the Democrat Party, come out swinging?
I don't know that you have to swing. I think you just need to tell your story. We need to quit letting them tell the story. We need to quit letting them identify who we are and what we believe in. I read it every day. People that are saying things about how I believe, that's just totally not true. It's just totally not true. I don't check every box, and I just think there's a lot of things that we could be talking about that's important in this state, and I've outlined quite a few of them as I've talked to you today. But I don't think we're doing it at this point in time. I just don't think we're doing it. Now, they may be doing more than I know. And if they are, thank you. But I would think that having been a 2-time statewide office holder and a Democrat nominee for governor, that I'd know a little bit more about what's going on than I do. I don't know. I know very little. We don't have any conventions anymore. We don't have any meetings anymore. We don't have any of the. We don't have anything that we used to have anymore. I don't know what your county offices are doing. I don't know how they stay energized. I don't know. Like I said, they may have new ideas and new ways, and it may be working. If it is, I don't know it. If it is, we ought to have some candidates. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we ought to have somebody running for governor. We ought to have somebody. I mean, we didn't run anybody for ag commissioner the last cycle, and that's one of 66 board of register appointments. So those are the people that register people to vote, and we just give it up. We just didn't run nobody as an ag commissioner, and we got the same number of appointments the governor does. So basically, what you got is you got 3 Republicans sitting there registering votes.
And to me, that's a position like agriculture. To me, that's just a Democrat position. I mean, that's bread and
We
butter.
we didn't even run nobody. You know, we just said hell with it. It's hurtful. But most people didn't even realize. Not only when we didn't run nobody, we just give up 66 board register appointments.
I mean, yes, essentially just, I mean, you said give it up. Mr. Sparks, I've kept enough of your time. I thank you for answering these questions, giving me your time. And
Well, I hope I hadn't rambled. I hope we hit on some hot topics. I feel like, and I don't mind. Again, I appreciate you, reaching out and asking me to come on and make a few comments. I've been as truthful as I know how. I'm sure some that will listen will say, "Man, he don't know what he's talking about," but some will say, "I think he does." But you're not going to please everybody. But I've always shot from the hip and give it to you from my heart, and let the chips fall where they may. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you a lot, sir. I'm going to get this edited, get it posted, and I'll send you a copy of it.
That'll work. Send me a copy of it, and I'll watch it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Stop.